Wait, you have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV.
Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. It's Wednesday. It's a beautiful fall day here in New England. Maybe the only good time in New England as we transition into autumn. I hope you're well. I thank you for listening to the show. I have an excellent episode today. My guest is the one and only Lizz Winstead. You probably know Liz from her book. She also has a company called Shoot the Messenger. She was one of the co-creators of The Daily Show. She's incredibly funny. We have a lot in common, which you would not necessarily think, just knowing our work or looking at us, but it's true. Really love talking to her. She was in town doing some stuff for the Women in Comedy Festival, which is an excellent festival, and I was lucky enough to grab some of her time to sit down and talk with her. So please enjoy today's episode of TV Guidance Counselor, in which I welcome the one and only Lizz Winstead.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Lizz Winstead, how are you?
Hey, I'm so good.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, we're in a hotel.
We are.
With some crazy Dark Side of the Moon behind us. So if you hear it, we know. We're willing. One of my least favorite bands, in fact.
I never liked Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd and the Doors? No.
I hate the Doors so much.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I was like a punk rock kid anyway, but the Doors, I was like, sometimes I like a little bit of Jim Morrison stuff, but then the background sounds like supermarket music or something.
Right.
Or plus it's so I just read On the Road and I really want to be poetic kind of stuff.
And it's also just so like, just have sex with me.
Yeah.
Which gross.
Yeah.
I'm also a punk rock kid. And also I'm the youngest of a whole bunch of siblings, and I'm young by a lot of years. So my parents would like leave us and I would be looking for dinner while people would just be tripping in our living room to the Doors.
Nice. Yeah.
And I was just like, I just want eggs.
That's a good
and somebody
aversion
would just be
therapy.
like, staring at the sprinkler.
Yeah. That sounds like my parents and my family and uncles. It was like, Kenny, we're gonna put your uncle's gonna babysit you. He's bartending, so we're just gonna take you to his work. And
Nice.
It would be like, all we do is listen to Zeppelin, dude.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
and you're
not my
sitting there
thing.
with some kind of pencil.
Yep, I'm drawing, reading comics and drawing was pretty much all I did.
Oh my God, hilarious.
And help people play poker. So you grew up in Minnesota?
I did, Minneapolis.
So there was a lot of great bands too coming out of there. For
my
punk
God,
rock
the
stuff.
music scene and the comedy scene, and I'm the exact age where it was all coming together. So it was pretty cool because you would work all the same restaurants. Right. So you were filling in for people's shifts constantly.
Right.
And then you were on everybody's guest list.
Right.
So I don't think I paid for a rock show until I moved out of Minneapolis. But, you had everybody from Husker and the Replacements to Prince.
Yeah. Even Soul Asylum.
So I were roommates with Soul Asylum in college.
Oh, really?
Dave and Danny were my roommates
wow.
in college. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just kind of how it went.
Yeah. Because you had that Twin Cities scene kind of with a lot of the MST3K guys and all that kind of stuff was coming out of there.
Yes, it's so true. And then Jeff Cesario and Joel Madison and Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
So, and then we had all these cool writers like David Carr and Michelle Norris. And so, it was a crazy scene that was really fun.
It's kind of at least here in Boston, which tends to only talk about Boston. It is sort of a weirdly underrepresented, under-discussed era of art and stuff in America, that like Midwest, late 70s into the late 80s scene. Weirdly.
Well, what was so funny was we did not have a college radio station.
Right.
That was, can I swear?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that was for
Please do.
shit?
Yeah.
And so, my friends who were in bands, they would go on the road and they would play these small gigs, and like we knew them and we liked them, and we had a really vibrant indie record scene, but we didn't have a vibrant indie radio scene. So I'll never forget coming to Boston, to pick up a friend from college and drive her back to Minnesota. And I was just new into comedy. And so I thought I would do some open mics. And when I got here, everybody knew all my friends' bands.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because of, Newbury Comics and then just every radio station here.
Amazing college radio. Like I always say, if I lived a mile further outside the city and couldn't have got those in my bedroom as a kid, my life would be totally different.
Yeah. Well, my friend Spencer used to host a show called The Mystery Girls the MIT station at WBUR.
Which used to be WTBS, and Ted Turner bought the letters from them
Oh
in
my
1978.
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Spencer. Love you. But like, yeah, Boston was so cool, and just so it was just all crazy. It just all felt really crazy. The music and the comedy all mixed together.
Was New York the first city you moved to for comedy after?
No, San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to move to a place that wasn't quite. You got to make it now, kid.
You got 6 weeks.
Yeah. And so I went from Minneapolis to San Francisco, and then I went to LA, and then I went to New York.
You had all the good Boston transplants out there, like Dana and Paula.
Yeah, Dana was my roommate.
Kevin Meaney,
Dana Gould.
Yeah.
Kevin Meaney was my ex. There's a lot going on here right now.
Yes, you had a lot of those people out in San Francisco.
Yeah, Dan Spencer. It's Bobcat.
Yep. Bobcat had a garage sale on stage here the day before he moved to San Francisco.
So amazing. I know. There's some really good Boston comics.
When you moved out there, had you been to San Francisco before? Or you were just like, this is where I'm going to go?
I'd been to San Francisco a couple of times, and I would work in Boston quite often. I would come and do the road gigs because you can make a lot of money here. And I did a couple of one-woman shows here. And so I mostly moved there because I knew that the comedy scene was great, and Dana and Dan Spencer had moved out there, and so I moved out there, and I was roommates with them, and so I had a family of people.
It's sort of a Boston-y town too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the Boston people I know, it's like feels very comfortable for them. And I first time I went out there was like maybe a year ago. I was like, oh, I get it now. I get it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus Dead Kennedys.
Plus Dead Kennedy. Well, I mean, there's like some record labels out there that are like epic.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, the San Francisco scene, really good.
Because even in like the mid to late 80s, you had the Berkeley and all the Gilman Street stuff and all that pop punk bands and all that sort of stuff coming out of there as well.
100%.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Had you ever watched any of the shows set in San Francisco when you were growing up? Like Streets of San
Like
Francisco?
the streets of San Francisco?
Shows and be like, it's just like this.
I know, but I did read those Armistead Mopen books.
Oh yeah.
Tales of the City. And so I was hoping it was going to be more of that, like, we all live in this kooky commune and some weird old lady like runs our lives and befriends all of us. But like those are the first books where like gay characters were portrayed as like, this is how we live. Right. And our families have all sort of rejected us in some weird way because we're all misanthropic. So here's this weird family we've created. Yeah. I really love that. So, because I kind of feel like that's who I am now. I'm like the mother of dragons.
The comedy scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's not too far outside. Yeah. There's just usually less accomplishments right out the gate. So we picked an issue here. I kind of plied you with when I figured was probably when you were watching the most TV, which was like sort of mid to late 70s was kind of my guess.
Well, that was fairly, I was like 10 in 71.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
People tend to, I found that doing the show between ages 8 and 10 is when people watch the most TV because they were too old to really hang out with their parents and they could have their own choices, but not old enough to leave the house and do anything. Right. So it was like prime, let me watch TV all the time.
Well, it was also too when your parents were like, trusted that you weren't going to light something on fire or pee in your pants. And so they would allow you, the TV started babysitting you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
So it was like when they were like, you can have a TV in your room. I was like, this is a game changer. Creature feature night. Like, oh my God, all of it. Like that midnight scary movies. I loved it.
Do you remember did you have a horror host in Minneapolis?
We didn't have a local horror host. But I did see Elvira and also,
like Goulardi was in the Midwest. You had Elvira.
Yeah,
that was the big one. When she went national from LA, that was like, there was no more other hosts.
It stopped. Just like all of it. Like no one had a local romp room anymore.
Yeah, there was no, the drunken newsman who does the weekend shift isn't doing double duty as the horror host.
Yeah.
That was were you an SCTV fan?
I was.
That was my favorite thing with Count Floyd. How you knew he was also Floyd Robertson around alcohol, but it was so like subtly.
And they did it so well, so it wasn't, so over. I mean, SCTV. Who doesn't love the whole, I don't know, like there's a lot of SCTV that I love the most. I think the one, the sisters who had the talk show.
Oh, yeah. Well, they had there's an episode that called I'm Taking My Head and Putting It On Straight and No Man's Gonna Tell Me
No Man's Gonna Tell Me I Ate.
Yeah, it's Libby Wolfson.
Libby Wolfson.
Yes.
Libby Wolfson I loved.
The answer, my friend, is Libby Wolfson.
Oh my God, so great. And then who was it? Was it that Perry Como one where it was
he's
just
still
like
alive?
he's still alive.
I will survive.
So amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much amazing.
It's such a dark, weird show on a lot of the things. And the continuity was what I missed from stuff like SNL, where it was like you were rewarded for watching that show for a long time.
Yes.
Because of the callbacks like 4 seasons later.
Yes, 100%. So good.
And they were also all those actors on that show were not afraid of like ugging up. Like they would be real grotesques.
Oh, well, I was really lucky. The very first comedy special I ever did, Andrea Martin hosted
Was it Women of the Night?
Yes.
Yes.
And she did Edith Brinkley, and she did all these really great characters, and it was really fun. That was really cool.
Was she like kind of one of the first people you met that you had watched on TV before you started doing comedy? That you got to be doing comedy?
Weirdly, the way that I got to that show was even weirder. I was in San Francisco, and I had just come from a one-nighter in some godforsaken hellhole, like an hour and a half north of San Francisco for like $50.
Yep.
And there was a room called the Holy City Zoo that was the club room that everybody would go to. And you'd oftentimes come from a bad gig and then just pop up on stage and do 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I was just like full of ire because it was just like men who were just pissed that a woman was talking. And, you know, my cock should be in your mouth. Why are you on stage? And it was just like, oh my God, this is the chosen path of my life. What? So I get on stage to the Holy City Zoo and I'm just like lamenting about it. And this guy in the audience is just laughing and it's obnoxious. And I was like, oh my God, this laugh of yours is obnoxious. You sound like a mork. Shut up. And turns out it was Robin Williams.
There you go. Yep.
And afterwards, he came running out and he said, "You're really funny, and you know, I want to introduce you to my manager because I think you are really funny." And so he introduced me to his manager, and his manager helped me get on Women of the Night.
That's amazing. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that people were like, it just happens sometimes when you're not expecting it.
Well, and we had, when I was starting to come up, Louie Anderson was from Minneapolis, and he was like a big deal, and he had moved to California. But he had come back a lot and had me open for him. And so my very first time I ever got to headline a comedy show was in Minneapolis, and he flew back and opened for me.
That's amazing.
And put his name like smaller in the ad so that people would come out and see me, which I thought was really cool.
That's what I did my album out at Nerdmount last year, and Greg Proops and Laura Keitlinger did that for me. They opened the show. I'm like, well, now people will come.
Yeah, I mean, it's so sweet. I mean, like, great. And those two are gems.
Oh yeah, they were fantastic. I was like, I'm just happy that I get to see this show, let alone that I get to be on it as well.
Right? Isn't it crazy? I know sometimes you're like, oh my God, pinch me.
Yeah, it was like Louie and Roseanne were probably the two biggest sort of Midwest people.
Yeah, Roseanne definitely. She was living in Denver when I started out comedy, and she came to Minneapolis a lot, and we became friends. And I actually set her up with Tom Arnold. I wrote about it in my book. They stole my car for 3 days, and I couldn't find them. Nice. And then I tracked them down in a hotel room.
Was it weird seeing a lot of these people you came up with having like sitcoms and that sort of stuff at that time?
Well, you know what was really cool is that Minneapolis is an incredibly great town and had an incredibly great comedy scene. So there wasn't a reason to move because all these headlining acts would come through. You could stay there and develop relationships with people who were influential. So when you felt like you had a really strong 30 minutes and you wanted to move to one of the coasts, you had a network of people who would help you.
Right.
And that is a gift. Boston was a little bit the same way as well. And so that was a real gift to not feel the pressure to leave a place. And a lot of comics came and developed in Minneapolis before they like went someplace else instead of going to Boston or Minneapolis. So that was interesting too.
You can kind of just gestate and get good and then come out of nowhere in the big cities.
Well, Tom Arnold, he was like from Ottumwa, Iowa, moved up to Minneapolis, did comedy there for 5 years, and then moved out to, met Roseanne and then moved in. The rest is history.
Everyone knows that story and how that goes. So we were looking at this issue here. You wrote down a few things here. Were you a big TV kid? It sounds like it was babysitting you. So you were,
I was a big TV kid.
Yeah. Latchkey kid?
No.
Okay.
My mom made lunch for the priests and was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad sold carpeting and was a bookie.
Oh, nice.
So I think he was more of a bookie than he did sell carpet.
A bookie.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
We had like on Super Bowl, we had like a War Games style map on the wall of like all the over-unders.
Yeah, it was and for me, there was no cell phones and stuff. So like on Friday nights when the line would come in, like if I didn't have a plan to go out on Friday night by like 4, nobody could get a hold of me.
Yeah.
And so I was just like trapped and it sucked.
You never got conscripted to answering phones or anything? Then,
no, I was really good.
Yeah.
So it was just really funny. And my dad's clients were mostly all these East Indian people that moved to Minneapolis. And so men named Jit and Papu would be calling our house and just like saying the numbers, and it was like, what is that? I think you want my dad. I just hand the phone over.
Oh, same here. I always joke that before I went through puberty, when I'd answer the phone, people thought I was my mother, and after I went through, they thought I was my father.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Would just start talking, and I'm like, no, it's not. I'm not that person.
I can't take your number down. I can't do it.
I don't know what that sport even is.
Please don't.
Yeah, and I think the only person in my family for a lot of things, but I'm the only one who doesn't know how to play poker. I don't have a tattoo, and I've never been in the military or kicked out of the military. I think I'm the only one.
Nice.
Yeah. So
I can play poker, but I'm with you on all the other things.
Yeah.
No tattoos.
Yeah, it's a good move. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the first thing that caught your eye? I do want to mention that this one I kind of pointed out to you because right on the cover, it's foreign lobbyists and how they try to manipulate U.S. television.
That's right.
There's a big article in here about Russian sporting events getting too many hours of coverage on U.S. TV.
Well, and it's also hilarious too because in this TV guide, there's like 75 different shows about the Bible.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm not sure the foreign agents are dominating our TV, but I am quite sure Christianity is.
Yes, which is the most foreign agent, if you think of it.
Yes, if you think of it.
It's come from a celestial body.
Yes.
I just like to think of all priests and stuff as just lobbyists for religion.
I know, it's true. Well, I know. So the week we picked was the week of November
22nd.
Yeah, which so there's an editorial piece in it by David Brinkley about the Kennedy assassination, which was interesting. It's like, wow, TV Guide, it's really not a place that nowadays you would see in. I mean, David Brinkley is the equivalent of, well, we don't even have late night news anchors anymore, really. So it's sort of like having.
I don't even know.
Oh my God, there is no comparison anymore because we no longer have news people.
If Brian Williams was also an intellectual
and never lied about his career in journalism,
being shot at by planes, that would be sort of like David Brinkley.
Yeah, I mean that's what's so great.
Yeah.
Now I'm super depressed because I can't even make an analogous.
There isn't
correspondent, news, investigative reporter, or journalist person.
No.
Who is like sitting in a chair today.
There really isn't, and there's. One of the things that actually makes me sad along the same lines when I look at old TV guides is that the current TV guide, which is still published, it's basically just press releases. They just put in there and print. Yeah. It doesn't go filtered through anybody. And literally, like Isaac Asimov was writing articles for TV Guide.
That's
and
Eleanor
Roosevelt. And he would bring
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yes.
So because I like, what is the use of TV Guide now? Because your TV has a guide. In fact, there's a TV guide on your TV.
Yeah. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. It's split into 3 companies and one of them's just a magazine. But I'm like, who is buying this? Because it doesn't have any articles in it really.
No.
And it's.
I mean, it's a crossword puzzle for people who literally should just be put to sleep.
Yeah.
I can't.
Doing that crossword puzzle may be a form of euthanasia for many people. They're just.
I think it might be. I mean, it's literally like furry pet blank AT, and you're like, oh my God, no. It could be rat.
Is it a
Could
rat?
be cat. I know.
Yeah.
It's really.
It's the only crossword puzzle where they're like, oh, this one, it's like 4 or 5 answers for that. They all work.
They all work.
It doesn't matter.
Nothing matters.
I really don't know who buys it now.
I think it's just sort of some sort of thing that you have in retirement communities. So when you eat banana pudding, it will drop onto something.
Yes. It's like a bib.
It's a bib.
It's a bib.
It's a bib.
They can't call it TV bib. So
no, TV bib does not. It doesn't have the same pizzazz.
Doesn't have that jazzy pizzazz.
Yeah. So David Brinkley writing a story about the Kennedy assassination,
which wasn't that long ago in this issue.
It was 60. So it was not 8 years earlier.
Yeah.
And just like wild to think about. And then they had a bunch of really fun things. There was the greatest Bible heroes.
Yes.
All of them men.
Yep.
And then all of them white.
Yep. Although they wouldn't be.
No. I would say back then they're not. They're black.
My favorite thing about that is there was probably some sort of argument among the producers of that show on like who was top 3 or something. And so some like Christian guys were like, Samson is better than David.
I know. How do you get your greatest Bible heroes? Because I do feel like your own self-interest would come into play.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I'm going with Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
For my own personal self. Who doesn't love a whore with a heart of gold?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I love that. She's a hero. Some people might say, no, I'm going to go with Judas.
Yeah.
Because they actually hate the Jews.
They
so
could.
Maybe like, your Steve Bannon's.
Steve Bannon would probably go Judas.
100%.
Yeah.
I think.
I bet Steve Bannon has the greatest Bible heroes on tape. Like he
I
has
bet
a VHS
Steve Bannon
tape.
thinks he is
He very
greater
well may
than
think.
everyone in the
Yes.
Bible.
Or he probably thinks that Goliath got like a bad rap.
Oh,
Like,
that's true.
yeah.
Because you want to know what the little guy is just always destroying the world.
yeah. This is his problem. He wants a handout.
That's
Goliath's
right.
just going about his day.
Fuck Abel.
Yeah. Cain deserved everything. Cain was right. Abel was totally asking for it.
Well, and I went to the Creation Museum, which is outside of Cincinnati.
Yep.
Which is a museum dedicated to not science. And some of the stuff that they have yanked out of the Bible is real crazy.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of Eve blaming, as you can imagine.
Yes. Yeah.
So my favorite story that they had there is there's a plaque that said, before Eve ate the apple, childbirth was painless. And people were like, I had no idea. And then I was like turning to people going, who were the children in the Bible before? Like, this doesn't even make sense.
Well, it was painless because it didn't exist.
Exactly. It turns out many things are painless if they don't exist.
Did you ever see the movie The Apple?
No.
It's a musical, rock musical
About
about
the tree of knowledge?
combined with a future setting and a Eurovision Song Contest style disco musical, also about the temptation in the Garden
Was this
of
made
Eden.
in the 80s?
81.
Because I'm telling you what, there was so much shit that happened because literally people in TV were just jacked on coke 24/7.
yes.
When you look at summer replacement shows like Pink Lady and Jeff,
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it, please watch every episode. I own it. It was like no one was paying attention.
Nope.
They made this variety show that was inexplicable.
Two women who don't speak English.
Japanese women who sang American pop songs, the worst sketches ever.
Jeff Altman.
And then Debbie Harry was on
Yes.
one of the episodes.
Yep.
I mean, it was insanity.
A lot of hot tubs.
A lot of hot
Girls in
tubs.
hot tubs.
Yeah, a lot of like Pink Lady as like double agents in like
Yeah.
short skirt in like terrible sketches. Basically, the joke was they don't speak English. Let's make fun of them.
Yes.
It was super weird.
But we also find them kind of sexy.
Yeah. And so it was like everybody got thrown into Betty Ford.
Yep.
And then network executives got fired.
And we got
then
30
new
something.
people came in and went, what the fuck happened this summer?
Yeah.
And it was like a bunch of people on coke ran the network.
Yeah.
And including the guy who was running the network.
That is, having done this show for a couple of years and talked to people working then, that is totally accurate.
Yeah. I mean, how
Yeah.
else could this shit happen?
Have you ever seen Mr. Smith?
No.
You'll particularly enjoy this. 1984. It is literally an NBC show about a talking orangutan who gets elected president and lives in the White House. And it was NBC's huge show that fall. They had lunch boxes and toys, huge bomb. But there is a ton of documentation about the show that nobody remembers now. And I'm like, how did this happen?
Well, that was like that show that was in, God, was it the 90s or late 80s? What was it called? You're a TV dude, you're going to know. It was about Abraham Lincoln's slave who used to help him get chicks.
Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer. Yes.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
It was like, when
UPN.
when your slave is also your buddy who's
Yeah.
going out and getting you tail.
He's your cool black friend.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that show, that is one of those shows that, if not for the internet, people would be like, that's not a real show.
Yeah.
No. And I'm like, no, I really saw that. No.
And
that
do
is
you
not a real
remember
show.
for 5 seconds this other horrible show starring Cloris Leachman about pilgrims?
Yes. Yes.
It lasted about 4 episodes.
Yep.
It was horrible.
One of the worst short-lived shows was It's About Time. Did you ever see that one?
Is that worse than the one with the child, Small Wonder?
Small Wonder is creepy as hell
Yeah.
and real bad.
Yeah.
Speaking of San Francisco, the kid who played Jamie is homeless there now.
Oh, stop.
Yeah. He's,
Oh.
yeah, not doing well, but
Sad.
everyone else is all right.
Wait, what was this one? What is this you tell of?
Small Wonder?
No, the one you
Oh,
said.
It's About Time? It's About Time was astronauts
Ugh, I already hate
that
it.
land in caveman time. So it was like Planet of the Apes, but cavemen, and one of the cavemen was
Lost
played
in Space in Caveman Times?
Yes, was Joey Ross from Car 54. Where are you? The,
Oh my God, yeah.
guy.
Ooh.
And then the first season did not do well. So then they put both the cavemen and the spacemen in current day somehow, and it was like just awful. Like vaudeville 80-year-old men clearly writing the jokes, but then trying to be like hip in 70s, and
Oh shit, that is
None of it
just the
works.
worst. I mean, I have a hard time with space anyway, unless like Ed Harris or Sam Shepard are in space.
Right.
So
Do you find it terrifying or do you find it boring?
I like the sky. Here, this is not going to make any sense, but it's
Okay.
just my rationale. I like the stars and I like the moon, and but anything about capsules or peeing in your suit
Right.
or the tang, like
Yeah.
the food seems awful. It seems boring. Like after a while, not having gravity would like, okay, now what? Like I feel like
Yeah.
have too much OCD to like be able to sustain in that environment.
Yeah, I remember the other day, it was recently, there was an astronaut talking about how they couldn't have bread in space, vegetables, but the bread they couldn't have because of crumbs, because they would fly off in the no gravity and ruin all the equipment. So they're like, we love tortillas, they don't have crumbs. But I was like, that is not a thing I want to have to consider about how crumbs might end up killing us because it ruins our survival.
Yeah, I'm just going to pretty much stay earthbound so I can eat a croissant.
Yeah, that's mostly why I'm here.
It's only why I'm here.
Yeah.
Like I have no other purpose. It's just to walk the earth and eat a croissant.
Eat croissants. Do you like the plain or do you go with a filled croissant?
You know what? I think that depends on my mood. I
Yeah.
feel like it's not an either or thing, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you wake up and you go, sweet.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you wake up and you go, savory.
That's true.
And then sometimes you wake up and you go, butter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Most days I wake up and go butter, and then I make.
And
the
then you
sweet
add some
savory
things on
call.
top of that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Think of
That
its
makes
own.
perfect sense.
There's-
Okay.
There's an
We are
amazing.
we are so not doing the show. We're doing
That's
some
quite all
different show.
right. Yeah,
Is that
but
okay?
that's what we do. That's fine.
Is this
yeah.
what happens?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm so bad at these shows. Like
No,
anytime
no.
there's a theme, you can guarantee that I'm going to go on some
all
screeching.
about the tangents.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, people told me that they're like, having Liz on the show, she's gonna steer it towards croissants at some point in the show.
You know, because I'm known for my croissant humor.
yeah, we put
People
up
go to the
whole
Daily
album.
Show. That must
Yeah.
have been really influenced by your love of croissants. And I'm
Yeah.
like, totally.
Because you have a croissant a day. The show was originally called Continental Breakfast, and it was just
100%.
croissants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't know that.
Was there shows that you watched growing up that were sort of precursors to the Daily Show sort of format that weren't straight news shows?
That was the week that was.
Yeah.
Was a show that I remember as a kid. Laugh-In. Weekend Update early.
Yeah.
But I didn't, people often ask me those kind of questions, and my interest in politics and in satire and all of that really came from lived experience of
Right.
just being kind of a misanthropic kid who happened to be born a girl who had interests that made the societal norms feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In not even like ways that were hard. Like I wanted to be an altar boy. That's problematic.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a paper route. My mother felt it was not safe. I didn't like children. I hated babysitting. I didn't want to be around them. So, it was like when I would just want to do something different, it was just viewed as this complete inconvenience to adults and to anybody who just wanted to put me in some kind of, lane because that just was easier.
Like, why don't you just shut up?
Yeah,
and
can't
do
you just
this
enjoy
thing?
this?
Yeah.
It's like, no. Like,
Yeah.
in fact, it was absurd because as a kid, the irony is they would like give you for Christmas a miniature ironing board and a miniature stove.
Easy bake oven.
Yeah, and you'd be like, every appliance my mother would weep over and her life was fucked up, they would give me as a toy.
Yeah.
And it's like, you expect me to enjoy this thing that you literally are having a nervous breakdown over?
Yeah.
This seems like a trick.
That's a very weird. Yeah, no, it really is. It's like a test. Like, will you reject this or will you go with your fate?
Yeah.
Like, it's a very weird. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So that part of it was weird, but the shows that had independence in them, like That Girl was my favorite show as a kid.
Right.
Because she was single, she had a relationship that I felt like was like totally equal.
Mm-hmm.
She was doing things that
actress.
she was an
Yeah.
actress. She was in New York by herself. Like that's why I loved Barbie as a kid, and people were like, Barbie was so sexist, blah blah blah. And I was like, Barbie was free. She had a car
She's
and a
doing it.
house, and you could she was doing it with a dude, like whatever. And like her boobs and her feet were weird, but I didn't care because I could create a life for that. And even my mom said, you never play house. You play many other things. And I was like, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But I'm happy.
I'm in a house. Why do I
Yeah.
need to play that? It's
Yeah.
right here. Yeah.
Oh, that seems weird.
Yeah.
So
Weirdly, now that you mention that, I think about my younger sister when she would get Barbies, and she would get like Spacesuit Barbie, and then
Yeah.
be like, Spacesuit Barbie's doing her grocery shopping.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do you have Spacesuit Barbie and you're just making her clean the floor? It's
Yeah.
weird.
I think because like it's so weird. And so then I really love Mary Tyler Moore, you know, and it was like I didn't like go, I'm gonna watch shows where women are empowered and
Right.
single and working. I just gravitated to shows that felt like a fantasy.
Yeah.
As television is wont to do. And then I love quiz shows.
Yeah.
Like I love Jeopardy. I love anything with all of it. Like if there was questions involved, I loved it.
Were you a big reader, like a trivia buff type
Yes.
kid anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
And it would be.
And I loved the news. I loved the news as a kid.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was always like what parents would threaten children with. Like, I'm going to make you watch the news.
No, I loved the news.
Did you find it scary at all? Or just
No, I
interesting?
found it because I lived in an era, you know, like when the Vietnam War was happening, and I
Yeah.
had siblings who were old enough to have friends die and be drafted.
Mm-hmm.
The fights around my table were my siblings fighting with my parents. And if I wanted to know what they were talking about, I needed to watch the news.
Right.
And so I did.
So you were arming yourself with the information
Yeah.
to be involved in the conversation.
And I also liked winning. And there would be
Yeah.
like trivia or whatever. And I liked to know things. Like I
Yes.
thought it was fun to know things.
I 100% identify
Yeah.
with this here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was- when I was in second grade, a teacher had to apologize to me in front of the whole class because when I mentioned that flamingos were only pink because of the shrimp they eat, she said I was stupid and making up things.
Really?
And I was like, no, I read it in a book. It's real. And then she found out later and had to be like, I'm very sorry, everybody.
Oh
was
my God,
wrong.
that's so amazing.
Yeah, that was a good / bad day.
Well, I remember I went, I took a psychology exam and I went and got really high before the exam. And I'm not a big pot smoker, but I did for some weird reason. And I had to take this psychology exam in high school. And I was like on the dance line, and this psychology teacher had a bias against like anybody who would be perceived as like possibly popular. But I was somebody who just like, I liked a lot of shit.
Right.
You know, I liked like punk rock music. I was like on the dance line. We literally dancing to Joan Armor Trading in the halftime. It was crazy.
Superman for like 30 minutes.
Yeah, you know, just insane,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I remember taking the test and just like writing. And he passes all the tests back, and he's my test is the last one, and I don't realize it's me, but he's like, this person had this exemplary test, and I feel like was just really thoughtful and can really understand the human psyche. And I was like, can I have my test? like, where's my test? And he goes, and he hands the test, and I have an A on it. And then he says, you know, and you should be happy that one day you'll be a great mother. It wasn't like you have good instincts to make good choice. It was like he just relegated me to that thing. And it was just like, I will never forget that being like,
It's a shame all these brains will go to waste while you make cookies.
yeah, but like it was like, oh, you'll be able to make a lot of cookies, or like
Yeah.
trying to like make me be the best mother rather than like the world is your oyster. You seem to understand human beings.
You'll know exactly what kind of cookies your kids like
Yeah.
without having to ask them. That is
Totally.
very, very strange.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, I can't imagine, you know, just being a guy and growing up and liking sort of very similar stuff. I got enough kind of crap for that without the additional factor of like all the woman stuff. But it was like, you don't like sports or other. What's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't understand why. It's not my thing.
Right, right. And it was like finding each other as girls took a little bit longer. You know, you like, because if guys like the music I liked and just like kooky indie movies and stuff like that, there wasn't as many girls that liked that. There was some. And then in college, I really found out that was a big branched out more for me. So
Was there any favorite like odd movies that you stumbled on as a kid on TV that you just like became some of your favorite movies or were like life changing because you're like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen?
Oh, I think Dr. Strangelove for sure. I would say a movie that I stumbled across that was super kooky. Clockwork Orange. I didn't love it. I mean, it made me really uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
I remember watching it. Brazil.
Yes. These all have common themes.
What else did I love?
Is there a movie that you absolutely love that then you showed at someone else and you're like, you're going to love this? And they're like, I don't understand what.
Well, I mean.
Like Repo Man is that movie for me.
Repo Man. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there was some weird, like, it's interesting. I suggest everyone go watch Glenn or Glenda again.
Yes.
Because when we watched it, it was, oh, isn't this funny? It's a wacky movie about a guy who puts on clothes when he's home. And if you watch it again, it's this really thoughtful story of a trans person.
And it's sad. Like
it's sad.
Really, knowing that he was making this movie about himself and starring in it, you're like, I feel so bad for this guy.
Please. I know. And it was just simply like, I'm going to make a movie so people might understand who I am. Freaks.
Yes.
Was also one. That was, and that movie was amazing because the first paragraph that comes up in that film was made in 1936, I think. You know, when it says, part of the reason I'm making this movie is because through medical science, you're not going to know who these people are anymore. And oddly, as we sit in 2017, the Zika virus is creating, can create people who live with what they called pinheads in the movie. Yeah. You know, and so stuff like that is really fascinating.
I had a guest on the show who I won't name, but people who are regular listeners know who it was, who was complaining because her family owned circuses for years. And she was like, we can't have freak shows now. And it's because of political correctness. And I was like, actually, I think it's because those people
destroyed the lives of animals. Yeah.
Don't have a lot of those problems now. And if they do, they don't need to be in a circus to make money because they can get, benefits and
have real jobs,
social services.
Yeah, they're not ostracized by humanity.
The Americans Disabilities Act is allowing them to work in an office instead of in a pointing at them show.
And we don't judge them.
And she was like, oh, I guess. I was like,
oh my God, that's insane.
I was like, that is one of the weirdest complaints I've ever heard anyone.
Well, it's just so, I mean, like, I feel like we just live in that society anyway. You hear people like, I live in West Virginia, and why aren't you bringing my coal mining jobs back? Yeah. And it's like, because children died 15.
Yeah.
Second of all, who else? Like,
we went through the Industrial Revolution already.
Well, and it's just like, I don't understand why. You learned a skill, and like, we have now like literally evolved out of it. People are sitting around going, I repair 8-track tape players. Yeah. I deserve a job.
I should be a switchboard operator for 9X.
I know. Exactly. You're like,
bring back the landlines.
Yeah. I mean, so at some point, what are we doing?
Yeah. I know. Why do you appease these? Like as someone who suffers from nostalgia, I also try and put things in context.
I love that you say you suffer from nostalgia.
I do. I'm one of those people who like my hobbies. I'll be like, ugh. Like I wish I didn't like these things.
Yeah.
But looking back, there's not rose-colored glasses with this stuff, and so much of it was just out of necessity.
Yeah.
That yes, some things are probably better for some people after World War II, but that's because we were the only country that benefited from World War II.
Well, also, who were they better for? When you wax on about I want my country back or I want the way it was, it's like, no one took your country. And B, I think we have done a really kooky job these days of conflating taking with sharing.
Yeah.
And
if something I don't have, someone else must have it if I didn't get it.
Right. And how about we can't really have a good, full, rich society if those who have been screwed by it aren't part of a process with which to make it better.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, white people, you actually don't know the path that a lot of brown people or women have been on and the obstacles that have been there. Maybe if you listen to their stories, you'll see why some of the shit in place is bad.
Yep.
And they can help you be in charge of some stuff to make it better so that we are all creating a world that we all live in.
You know what I wonder, too, is growing up in the TV of like the era from that we grew up with Twilight Zone and with a lot of sort of dystopian movies and sort of movies that were really very thinly veiled metaphors. I feel like all of those films and TV shows made us sort of better people because the allegory was seeping into our brains, even if we didn't know that it was at the time. And two things, really. I don't understand how people who are of sort of our age group who watch that stuff didn't get it, or like sided with the villain or something. Like, he should have kept those people out of his fallout shelter, or like some weird thing like that. Or, a generation of people who grew up with just all purely aspirational television or laugh at rich people television, and then they have there's no sort of morality plays, which I think is a problem I think that's part of how we got here.
Well, yeah, and I think that because those shows didn't capture the complexity of humanity, that there's good and evil in everybody. In fact, something I think when the movie It's a Wonderful Life came out, it bombed.
Oh yeah.
And then it just went away for a really long time. And its reintroduction to me was like back in the early 80s. All of a sudden it came back. And I was reading a lot about it because I really love this movie. And one of the reasons I really love about this movie is that it's a movie that came out when all these movies were coming out, where there was a good guy and a bad guy. Yeah. And oftentimes that bad guy was a Japanese person or, whatever. And this was a movie where someone had to wrestle with their own demons, right? There was no bad guy. The bad guy was part of us because bad guys make up part of who we are. And that's why I love that movie so much, is that George Bailey has to wrestle with his own assholery.
Yeah. And when I made decisions, was it the right thing? Mm-hmm. What, that just shades of gray and everything.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think part of the movie went in the public domain, which is why it aired endlessly, was sort of the quintessential Christmas movie. But part of the reason I think it went out of vogue too was because people at Christmas didn't want that. Yeah. They didn't want that like soul searching, like this is a time to reflect on maybe things you did wrong and maybe some things you were bad. You're not a bad person, whatever. Right. And if you look, being replaced sort of as the perennial with Christmas Story, which is a movie I like, but is just an anecdotal kind of nostalgic, fun little movie, and doesn't have those heavy sort of it's the end of the year, let's reflect on what we've done kind of thing.
But and I guess for me, I just don't ever feel like my life affords me to not be reflective, and that's probably why I do what I do, right?
Yeah.
And so when I look at that movie and the richness of George Bailey giving constantly, the dude could have said at one point, you know what, I'm not going to always cave. Right. But, to show that brilliant scene at the end where people just loved him and it was great. Like that was really, I think those are really important things.
And he had no
see.
idea. Yeah. That, struggling with this stuff, you don't see how other people see you. That's the other big piece of that movie that resonated with me, is like, no matter how you feel, other people don't see that necessarily.
Right.
Which is such a odd message to put in what people kind of read off as a, kind of a cheesy holiday movie.
Yeah.
But I think also at that era, one of the things, and to sort of David Brinkley writing in this, all the people who are making movies and making television and writing about these things at that time led lives before they did that.
Yeah.
They had life experiences that they brought to making a movie or writing a book or writing this stuff. They didn't grow up watching stuff and then sort of regurgitating stuff from what they had watched.
Well, I think also too, there was a really strong middle class in Hollywood for a really long time, right? Yeah. Like you could be somebody who wrote jingles, or, you were a staff writer on a show, or, you would make a really nice living and you weren't so rich that you were taken into this other sphere. And I think that's gone. It feels like it's either you're really successful or you're just constantly struggling on this wheel. Neither of those. And struggling on a wheel in Hollywood is sort of a different struggle than like regular folks live, right?
Yeah.
So neither of those spectrums are something that make up a rich.
They're not relatable to your average person.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
So you end up, and I cite Roseanne a lot as sort of the last great blue collar show that was on, where people had struggles and they were arguing about, we're going to lose the house, or, we lost our business and that sort of stuff. And I feel like after that, people didn't want to see their own lives reflected as much. And part of it, I think, was the networks telling them they didn't want to see it. But then you started getting all aspirational shows.
Yeah, but then looking at this, Roseanne was one of the most successful sitcoms ever on television.
Yeah.
And so then to reject that is like so anathema to everything that makes sense, but then Hollywood doesn't make sense, and whoever takes over doesn't make sense, and so it's just like that kind of weirdness where it's like I don't even understand.
Yeah, I found that like even though we're in kind of this golden age of quality television, they're just these dire worst case scenario shows. Like something like Breaking Bad, it's like what awful thing is going to happen to everybody for the whole hour, all the time.
Yeah,
and I it's almost too far in the other direction.
Well, and it's hard, like, and especially in the age of binge watching. I binge watched The Wire. I literally watched it for 6 days, and I couldn't stop watching it. And that show is just this lays out how profoundly fucked up society is, and what the intersections of what the investments are in police department, drug dealers, politicians, print journalism and TV journalism have in keeping poor, vulnerable people poor and vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my God, this is like such an incredible weaved narrative that you shouldn't watch it all at once.
Yeah.
because you hate humanity.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's so many shows I watch and just you feel just unrelentingly bummed out after for weeks. And I do think that even the sort of grimmer shows that we watched growing up, having that week in between is kind of an important thing to sort of reflect on it and also sort of recover.
Yes.
Which is totally lost. I think the last show I watched like that was a show called Fringe, which was an amazing show. It was J.J. Abrams did it. It was a sci-fi show, but took place in Boston. But it was basically about letting go and letting people die.
Wow.
And like familial relationships, sort of in the guise of a sci-fi show. But it was tough, and I could not have binge watched that show.
No.
It was too heavy.
Yeah, that sounds intense.
What else did you have on there?
Oh my God, I know. It's just spirits of... Oh, I like... It's like Grease, but on roller skates. And I love, like... I'm sure that Grease back then was like... Everything was... It's like Grease.
Yeah.
But doing something else. Or it's like Battle of the Network Stars, but doing something else. But this show is weird because it was by the HR Puff and Stuff people.
Sid and Marty Krofft, yeah.
Yeah. So they had
did Pink Lady and Jeff too, by the way.
I know. That's how I'm almost positive these people were just mainlining crap. But it didn't seem like a good idea. And then my favorite thing though was like Saturday, November 16th. Share Tattoo's Secret Fantasy.
Yes.
So Tattoo from Fantasy Island was about to share Tattoo's Secret Fantasy. And I don't know what Tattoo's Secret Fantasy was, but I do know that I'll never forget this. I was at the Toronto Comedy Festival and I met a dude who was like pre-hipster, and he had 2 giant tattoos on his arm. One was Burl Ives.
Okay.
Who was an American folk hero.
Yep.
Or no, Canadian folk hero.
Was it him in Rudolph, Burl Ives?
It was not. It was Burl Ives, Canadian folk hero.
Okay, so countrified Burl Ives.
Burl Ives. But also radical. Burl Ives is kind of a badass, right? The other tattoo he had was of Hervé Villechaize. So it was very meta because he had a tattoo. Of tattoo. Which is bold.
Yeah.
When you're 20.
Yeah.
It's like funny and ironic and you show people and they laugh. And then I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know where that guy is now.
Then you have a tattoo of Hervé Villechaize forever.
Or maybe you just decide that, or I don't know. Like, you can take the word Diane and make it something else.
Yeah.
But
forever.
I don't know how you alter Hervé Villechaize.
I don't know because I assume the tattoo was life-sized. It was probably accurate 1-to-1 scale of Hervé Villechaize.
It was large.
Yeah. He's a fascinating guy, Hervé Villechaize. I don't know.
He's a wild man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was pulling guns on people all the time. And he dated Susan Terrell for years.
Who's Susan Terrell?
She won an Oscar
Didn't he go out with Susan Anton?
He may have. Susan Terrell was in Forbidden Zone, if you've ever seen that. But she was in, she won an Oscar. What was the Oscar? She's in Crybaby. Did you ever see Crybaby?
Yes.
She's like Iggy Pop's. She's
nuts.
She's got a voice like this.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. They dated for a while and were living together. Let's see if it tells us what his secret fantasy is. Rourke entrusts Tattoo with the fantasies of 2 Las Vegas chorus girls, of course, played by Connie Stevens and Barbie Benton, who want to find rich husbands. Also, a doctor, played by Bert Convy, wants to find financing for a multi-million-dollar healthcare center.
Planned Parenthood.
Yeah. So apparently Tattoo's fantasy is to be Mr. Rourke.
Yeah.
I mean, that would check out.
Or to be Captain Steubing.
Well, we all wanted to be
Because
Captain
isn't that
Stubing.
basically the same show?
Yeah, more or less.
You're on an island.
Yeah.
You're on a boat.
Thought the magic.
It's like Grease, but you're on a boat.
Yeah, it's Grease on a boat.
Grease on an island.
It's Love Boat with roller skates.
I mean, I feel like that's all these shows were.
Yeah.
It was just this like combo thing of all. It was this successful thing combined with this successful thing.
Yeah.
With this new change, but it's all blondes with big boobs.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's the difference.
Yeah. Or sometimes you get a brunette, but she was like the villainess.
Yeah, always.
Or the blonde actress playing her own evil twin.
Oh, that was always good. I'm
Yeah.
Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie.
Yeah.
There was always, the evil twin because, every woman has to have an evil twin.
Absolutely. You can't, that's the one that the guy wants to hang out with that he's not married to has to be the evil twin on the show.
100%. 100%.
I mean, how else would that work?
It
doesn't
wouldn't
make
work
sense.
any other way.
I mean, that's just crazy. There is a movie on called Bastard.
Oh, what's
which
that
I'm
about?
actually surprised about. In 1772, Philip Chabanel, now Philip Kent, arrives in Boston and finds employment with the publisher Buddy Ebsen of the Patriotic Newsletter. This includes a 2-part adaptation of the John Jakes novel. Kim Cattrall is in it.
Oh, she must have been really young.
Yeah, yeah.
A young Kim Cattrall
Stars in
and
Bastard.
Jed Clampett.
And Buddy Ebsen.
Private
yeah.
Eye.
Yeah, the original Tin Man. And Carrie Fisher hosts Saturday Night Live
Allergic
that
to
night.
the paint.
Yeah, they put what was it? It was like lead or something in it, like something highly
Yes.
toxic in it. Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting because I don't know, maybe it's not interesting, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So our symbol of my organization, Lady Parts Justice League, our symbol, whatever you call it, logo, is a gold uterus. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get it tattooed on me, but you can't have gold paint or gold ink because it's toxic.
Yeah.
So why somebody didn't know that coating a human being in toxic silver
It's
garbage.
1939. That's how we found out.
Yeah, we also drugged up Judy Garland so
Yeah.
she could be on the filming schedule.
And what's her name that played the witch got burned very badly too.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, in the scene where she is in Munchkinland and she goes up in the flames, the way that was supposed to work is there was a trap door. She goes through the trap door, then the flames hit. Instead, the flames hit, and then she went through the trap door. So she got burned very badly and was like in horrible burn pain.
Oh my God, that's
for
the
majority of
worst.
that movie. Yeah.
Well, that's also too. There's a really great, sweet old movie called Summertime, starring Katharine Hepburn and Rossiano Brazzi.
Okay.
She's a woman in her mid-40s traveling alone in Venice. It's really a sweet movie. But she was one of the scenes. She was backing up to take a photograph and falls into the Venice canals.
Oof.
And from that moment forward, and this was in I think the 50s, she had horrible staph infections.
Ugh.
From that growth. And so can you imagine how gross those canals are now?
No.
So gross.
No, there's such like sentient MRSA.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the Gowanus
Ugh,
Canal in
that's
New York.
disgusting.
Is like,
Anything else we have on there? What do we this episode of Saturday Night Live is really good that Carrie Fisher hosts. I will mention this one. It's very funny. They do a really good Frankie and Annette sort of beach party parody in it. That's really funny.
oh my
And
God.
there's some very funny stuff in that.
That was
episode.
you picked a good TV guide. I mean,
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher, David Brinkley.
Yeah. Although
You
TV
know?
was easier to get a high hit rate then because I think there was although there was a lot of garbage like Grease on roller skates.
But there was no cable. So you could really get some ratio of stuff. And I think that family comedies were very popular.
Yes. Well, it was true broadcasting. They were trying to
Yeah.
make stuff to appeal.
100%.
And you had those holdovers of the variety shows. That was the weirdness.
That's right.
That kept Bruce Valanche in t-shirts for years and years.
For
and
years and red glasses.
Yep. That's writing those jokes. That's how he did it.
I know.
Anything else on there? What do we have?
Yeah.
You got-
what else is? Oh, I pulled out my. Grease on roller skates.
Yep.
The Bible.
The Bible on roller skates.
We had
Grease on the
Tattoo
Bible.
Secret Fantasy. David Brinkley. Those are my 4 that I picked.
Oh, nice. Is there anything? Do you have any sort of comfort shows from your childhood that you'll watch now or like revisit?
I mean, that girl for sure. Whenever
Yeah.
I can find that girl. I mean, whenever I can find it, I own the whole box set. I really love that girl. A show that I think is really weirdly funny, and I'm sure is a show that should never been on the air because it's really, really a problem, is Lance Link, Secret
Yes.
Chimp.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to have tortured those.
So I thought the same thing. And one of the guests I had on the show is the guy who put the DVDs out and did a documentary on Lance Link. And they actually didn't.
Really?
And Lance Link is still alive.
No.
He's because all those chimps were babies because they're much.
Oh
smaller.
my God, I
So
cannot
Lance
wait.
Link-
I'm literally, as we're talking, I'm texting my managing director, Kat, to tell her Lance Link is still
Yeah,
alive
he's
because
alive.
she is going to be so
He is in
happy.
an animal refuge
No.
just outside of LA.
Oh my God.
They go and find him and visit him. He's like, because chimps live to be like 50, 60 years old. And yeah, he's in his 40s or 50s and is alive and well.
Oh my God,
It's
this
like-
makes me so happy.
Something
Oh my
good came out
God.
of today.
Lance Link is still alive.
Because I love that show. And even as a kid, I was like, oh, I'm sure they're horribly abusing these animals. And they may have, but I have it on fairly good authority that they treated them pretty well. And were relatively humane.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That show was weirdly kind of smart too because
It was really smart.
based on Get Smart, which was super smart.
Yes.
So it was that weird meta kind of weird show, like the Monkees too, the actual Monkees.
Yeah.
That were mixing up all kinds of weird, surreal stuff and sort of cartoon humor in a live action thing, which kind of blew my mind as a kid.
Well, I also love the Beatles cartoon.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, that was, and I also love the Bill Cosby cartoon.
Oh, the Fat Albert and Cosby
Fat Albert
Kids.
and I mean, that was just great.
I actually really liked his first show from 1971.
Yeah.
The single camera sitcom one.
Yeah.
It was just a good show. It
I
was-
know.
What a
Too
monster.
bad. Whoops.
But other people made the show.
You know,
Anything you watch now? Is there anything that you like? If you want to unplug from the news, is there like a shut your brain off kind of show that you have, or can you even do that?
I can do that. I'm usually binging. I love Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Yes, yeah.
I really love. Oh, Fleabag, I think is really
haven't seen
great. It's a
Fleabag.
British show about a single woman. It's really great.
Oh, yes, I've heard about that. The girl who wrote it stars in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really, really great. I mostly I do a lot of Turner Classic Movies.
Yeah.
You know, part of my other weakness is just I really love old Hollywood and old showbiz. So you give me any kind of old thing like that, I will watch all day, every day.
First time you went to LA, did you go visit any of that stuff, or were you like overwhelmed with any of the old Hollywood stuff? Was there like an
Yes.
old Hollywood thing you had to go to?
I mean, I love the Map of the Stars.
Yes.
I've been on the Manson tour. That was kind of a weird thing, but I did it. I loved all the old mansions.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, and I think, you know, the Gershwin's house I loved. Lucille Ball's house was torn down.
Yeah.
What old Hollywood thing the Formosa.
Where's the
The
Formosa?
Formosa was an old bar that one of those starlets was discovered at, but it's got like red banquettes and it's got like black and red flocked wallpaper. Musso and Frank is
I love Musso
really
and Frank.
fun, right?
Yeah.
So I really love all of that kind of.
Sit in Mary Pickford's booth there. or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I love that shit.
Do you think, because a lot of people that I know who either grew up in that area or have been there forever take that stuff for granted all the time.
Yeah.
And so kind of coming from, the Midwest or coming from Boston, when you go out there, it's still like,
Yeah.
it's Hollywood. It's bizarre.
It's Hollywood. It's
Yeah.
bizarre. And, and as we talk today, it's the anniversary, the first anniversary of the death of Prince.
Yeah.
And so that has become a big, like, just any and all things Prince. I worked at First Avenue, the club that during the time of Purple Rain.
Yeah.
And so, like, I have this Prince experience that happened in my life sort of profoundly because I was there at the time that a lot of shit was happening. And so, like, it's just like, I think when you live a place, you always do.
Yeah. And he's a guy
Take
that we
advantage.
expected to be here forever.
100%.
It was so weird on this. I had Brenda Bennett, who was in Vanity Six, on the show, and she lives in Rhode Island, from Rhode Island, and her story of how she got set up with Prince is just bizarre. But the week that episode came out was the week that Denise Matthews died.
Oh my
and
God.
then 2 weeks later, Prince died, and it was really bizarre to have any sort of tangential connection to because it was such a huge thing. But it sounds like Minneapolis is really making it like a big event to celebrate his life on this day, which I hope continues.
I think they will. I mean, it's kind of like he was our own before he ever died, and Prince was a very strong son of Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Right.
He didn't have to live there still.
And he loved it. And when you think about it, and this is one of the reasons I think it's such a magical place is for queer kids and kids who are just weird, and gay folks and trans folks and people who are just like out there, who live in farm communities and maybe would look at Chicago as like a big scary place. They could come to Minneapolis and like the biggest hero out of this weird Midwestern town is this person.
Yeah.
And the fact that the town embraced him and the town embraced all these weirdos. I write about it in my book a lot. It was just this place where weirdos gathered, and you really felt like safe there. And it's oftentimes jarring when you leave there and go someplace else and then you realize how different you are and what that really means.
And I think for younger people too, who are used to living in a world that's like that mostly, having a not everywhere be like that and having salvation places was bizarre. You could dress like Morris Day in a zoot suit from the 40s and no one would bat an eye towards you, but you couldn't do that everywhere. Now you kind of could, but not.
Yeah, no. And in Minnesota, like the thrift stores were thriving and people always were like dressed up in some kooky thing. And, I went through like a Mary Tyler Moore phase and I went through a 40s phase. And then I just like, shaved my head. I mean, like I've been everywhere and done all of it.
Well, you gotta get all of it.
Right.
Thank you so much for doing this.
This was so fun. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I loved it.
Oh, baby, I see you in my TV set. Yeah, baby, I see you in my TV set. I cut your head off and put it in my TV set.
There you go. Lizz Winstead. She's great. She has a great book out, which she references in our chat, called Lizz Free or Die. Came out 4 or 5 years ago, but is still very much available. So I highly recommend you purchase that book. You will not be disappointed. It is very, very good. You can go to LizzWinstead.com to hear all about all of the stuff she does. In addition to comedy, does a lot of social work, has some amazing companies. Does a lot of great work for helping people, which is what we need more than ever now. And she is someone I admire very much for her commitment to that sort of thing. I am here each and every Wednesday, as you know, and you can be here then and listen to me. I won't necessarily know about it, but it'd be nice if you were. If you want me to know about it, you can email me at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com. or at ken@icanread.com. icanread.com being my stand-up comedy page, where you can also purchase my albums or TV Guidance Counselor merchandise. We still have a little bit of that left. I may order some new designs and things, so if you want to support the show, that is a great way to do so. You can join our Facebook page. Just search TV Guidance Counselor or tweet to me at TV Guidance. And we'll see you again next time on a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
Real Lives is kind of badass, right?